Good evening, everybody. This is the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held March 17, 2020 at 6 p.m. If we could please have the Deputy Clerk take the roll.
Councilmember Wilden?
Here.
Councilmember Henry?
Here.
Councilmember Hulse?
Here.
Councilmember Naren?
Here.
Vice Mayor Matthews?
Here.
Mayor Linsky?
Here.
And Councilmember Howard is absent.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on the agenda is a brief summary of current events by the Mayor, City Council, and/or City Manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during the summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Do we have any council members with anything to
I
report?
have one. On March 5th, I attended the TAC meeting for the Transit Authority. Bruce, the Transit Director, was present, Kent Ellsworth from Verde Valley Caregivers, and the Maintenance Supervisor from Clarkdale and myself. We had a pretty good meeting. The 4 buses for the links are being replaced. I guess we have a grant for that. Is that right, Ron?
Yes, well, that's yours. Where's mine? No sharing right now. My apologies. Probably so.
Okay.
We've got a couple grants right now. We have some coming in for the next year, so you'll see an application either tonight that we're going to be talking about that we put in for that. With your guys' approval, we'll submit for that if those are the grants we're thinking of.
You know, he said the current Lynx buses have all kinds of mechanical problems, and they were not a good buy when they were brought 4 years ago.
That is correct.
So hopefully we'll get new ones that are more dependable. Jerome is in the talking phase. They want 1 day a week, 2 trips from Jerome to the library is what they're talking about. And Bruce has explained to them that they're going to have to pay for it. So that's apparently a problem. So we don't know where that's at. And that's all that we pretty much discussed.
Not to discuss, but to clarify, that'll be coming back to council at a future point once those details are worked out.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he said it's still in the talking phases. There's nothing to be presented. So.
Very good. Anything else, Ms. Wilden?
Mine is in the way of a public service announcement. I received my 2020 census information in packet, and it took me literally 5 minutes to fill it out. So I urge anybody that gets that, there's a 12-digit code on it. You put that in the computer, and you can do it in a matter of minutes. It's very, very easy.
And if you don't fill it out, they will come to your house.
Exactly. More than once.
Yes.
Been to your house?
10 years ago. Yes, I forgot to send it in, and they came to my house. Yes.
Oh, just briefly, I'm on the Citizen Advisory Board for the State Wharf Superfund site over on what I think they call it the 260 Superfund site. They're going to be working with Mary Ann to come and give a presentation sometime in the near future to council, just trying to get the information out to the public. So if they present to us, it'll go out over the air. And so that's coming up soon. If you have any questions about it, though, I'll let you know.
Great, very good. Any other council members? No? Okay. I just wanted to say briefly, been busy the last few days. Could not have imagined last week that the COVID-19 situation could have escalated as quickly as it has. But just as way of informational reports and updates, I just wanted to say that we are doing everything we can to follow CDC guidelines. And I would urge everyone in the public and on council just to get information from an accurate source. We're posting information on our website. I think Ron's going to go over some more of the details on what the city's doing and what we're posting on our website and where to go for more accurate information. I'm in constant contact with superintendents of public instruction and with county elected officials and otherwise. So we're very well informed. I believe that we're as well prepared as we possibly can be. And the other thing I want to say is I've been through 3 or 4 maybe crises here in an elected capacity on this council. We have a fantastic team of people working for the city who have the public's best interest in mind all the time. And the first one being the death of our city manager, which came on suddenly, unexpectedly, which really truly was a crisis for Cottonwood at that time. A financial crisis that we all went through. Mr. Rodriguez handled that very well. This council has done tremendously well in coming together and navigating these situations. Rising floodwaters was another one that was frightening. Being in the room of folks having to make some pretty challenging decisions. So we always rise to the occasion as a council, as an elected body, and citizenry as well. So this will, I'm sure, test our fortitude as a community and our compassion as a community, but I'm sure that this council will make all the right decisions in leading us through this time of difficulty. And I'm hopeful that we won't have much spread of the COVID-19 virus in Cottonwood, but what certainly has impacted us right now, and its very real impact, is our economy. So if you do choose to go out, keep your distance, but tip your servers well. And keep those in mind who are less fortunate than us, because it's having a serious impact. All students are home now. Places a huge burden on families. So just keep that in mind and do everything that you can with compassion to help out those in our community who are going to have a very challenging time getting through this.
Are we doing anything for students at the rec center like we did for spring break?
I think Ron will have Ron.
I will, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Hulse. Cat's got my tongue, I apologize. Yes, so we've opened up a daycare center for certain age groups for our firefighters, our police officers, and hospital staff at this time. We have the capacity to have about 30 children. Ron Hasse, the CAO of the hospital, today put out the information to his team so that they would be aware that they could drop people off because he was having issues. And of course, we want to make sure that our first responders and of course the hospital staff can get to the hospital to do the work that they need to do. We'll continue to evaluate that. We've been in constant contact with Steve King on everything from free lunches to offering help with buses or vans or whatever it is they need. We've tried to offer to help them. We haven't opened that daycare up general public yet. We wanted to make sure we had enough room, and we're not trying to undermine what the schools have done by closing. So we're very cautious to do this, but there are certain people that just have to go to work, including our doctors and nurses and others. Right. So we want to have that support for the community, and I think we had about 6 kids today. Since the word went out to the hospital today, my guess is we'll have a few more tomorrow, and so we'll just kind of play this by ear. I'm not I don't know what the future holds, but there is a chance that the schools will continue to be closed for a little bit longer. And so as that continues, it'll be harder on parents. And so we'll continue to offer the services and see what we need to do. So long answer to your question is yes to specific groups of people.
Thank you.
Did you want me to continue on, Mr. Mayor?
Please do, yeah.
All right, well, I will say that the leadership team is awesome, and I've been trying to keep the council in the loop, but if I've missed or if you have questions or suggestions, please reach out to me. It has been a couple hectic days, but we're coming along great, and Rudy has been an asset, and Fire Chief Kirkendall and the whole team have been very helpful. So we had a mayor's meeting from the governor's office today that I was able to sit in on. They're working very hard and diligently to make sure that Yavapai County and others have the testing equipment and personal protective equipment for our public safety officials, and working very hard. And we have some contacts now to reach out to if we need some assistance. But I thought that was a very useful telephone conference. They did issue some guidelines for restaurants and businesses, which we posted on our website. And I've shared with the OTA and the chamber. I don't think I sent it to the chamber yet, but I'll send it to the chamber no later than first thing in the morning. But I did share those recommendations with the Old Town Association, and I will share those more broadly tomorrow, and they'll be on the website. And then we met with Yavapai County, had a meeting of leaders, including medical professionals from the hospital and otherwise, fire chiefs from throughout the valley, the ambulance, Chief Moore, was helpful that we are all in the same room, hearing some of the same stuff, and kind of listening to what different groups are doing differently. So that'll continue. The mayor's meetings will be daily now, updates from the governor's office, and we'll meet again next week, preferably via teleconference next week with the county. But we have some great leaders in the county and the state, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they provide. I wanted to go over a couple things to make sure people were aware of. We do have this on our website, and we released it yesterday as a press release. I also sent to council, and I'll continue to send on a daily basis, we're sending updates to city employees on all the different things that we're doing for them, including asking people to stay home if they're sick, contacting HR if they have other concerns, and we're making arrangements for telework and other options as asked and helpful. We're also doing things to limit contact with citizens where it's appropriate, and I'll talk specifically about those in a little bit. But the other thing is we're making sure that employees are whole in their paychecks through our sick leave policy, and we've extended some of the leave sharing program to both part-time employees who aren't normally eligible for it. We've just done some different things through, Kirsten's not here, through finance and HR, Amanda, to make sure that our employees are whole to no fault of their own, because we have canceled some programming, and that basically laid off some part-time employees, and we're going to make sure that they remain whole without creating a liability for the city. So we're happy that we're able to do that. A couple things that's important for the citizenry is we have waived the online utility billing, online bill payment. So you normally have to pay a fee if you make a one-time payment on our website for utility bills. We've waived those fees, so there's no cost at all. We would encourage you to do anything but come into the utility department to pay your bill, make a phone call, mail it in, or go online. The police department has shut down some services, fingerprinting, the Police Citizens Academy, the cadet program, and any ride-along or facility tours has been canceled at the police department. The library is open, but very limited services, mostly just books and reference checks. Their programming has been closed. Their seating areas where people can congregate have been shut off so that people aren't hanging out there, so we can meet those recommendations by the CDC and others. The rec center is the same. It is open, but all programming has been canceled, both adult volleyball, children's activities, aerobics, all of those classes have been done. We've also removed any seating areas again to recommend people not hang out there, do your business. We've also upped cleaning significantly. All the touch points have been cleaned and re-cleaned and cleaned on a daily basis. And we put up signs asking for self-quarantine if they're sick or haven't been, they're coming from out of the area, and all those other things as recommended. So again, both the library and the rec center are currently open at limited services. That could change on a dime, so stay tuned. And do go to CottonwoodAZ.gov/coronavirus for our updates on our own website. It's interesting, tomorrow we have our marketing PIO person starting, and that will be her first project, is to make sure that that website is kept up to date. As a side note for our website also, we're going to be looking to do what we can do to support businesses that are offering free delivery and other things. So we've been working with the OTA and the Chamber to figure out ways to promote our local economy so that people know they're still open for business and they don't necessarily have to come in to end. So that'll continue in more depth tomorrow when she starts. The fire and medical department has also suspended station tours, civilian ride-along programs, public education events, and other public events. We have decided to waive transit fares. So right now you can ride the bus for free, and that was really about protecting our employees, preventing the transmission of money and the germs that come with the money. So we believe it'll have minimal impact. If you've seen the transit budget, the fare section is not very significant, so we don't foresee an issue with that at this time, and we think it'll make our employees a little bit safer, including our admins who have to count that money at the end of the day. This is APS and Unisource have made a promise not to discontinue services, cut off services during this pandemic. one of my favorite updates, so please pay attention. PD, who's not represented here today, they're having a TP drive. They are having a toilet paper drive. So Officer Scarum sent out a notice today, and they're collecting toilet paper. You can drop it off at our police station, and then it'll be distributed through our senior center. We are trying to help those that clearly, if you are on social media or been to the store, you realize that it is a real issue. But thank you, PD, if you're listening. I also want to mention that the courts are doing different things to make sure that the employees and residents are safe, including they're not bringing prisoners to the jail, to the court anymore. They're doing everything through video conferencing and other ways. They're also doing paperwork via email and electronics and old-fashioned mail when needed. And then doing telephonic appearances when both parties agree to it. So they're doing what they can to reduce the number of people coming in. We have a couple of cancellations. There's going to be a lot more coming up. We've basically eliminated a lot of our meetings over the next month or so. But there was a open meeting law meeting at the Riverfront facility, March 31st. That's been canceled. There was a Joint Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Commission that was going to happen April 6th. We've canceled that. And then the regular scheduled historic preservation on March 25th has been canceled. And if you didn't see the previous email or the press release, all of our parks events currently scheduled are canceled. So Rudy made a comment, one of his favorite events, our Easter egg event, is canceled. We just can't keep the numbers low enough, but we're hoping that we'll be able to do that at another time. The Vintage Run has been canceled, or at least postponed is the word we like to use right now, and we'll continue to evaluate events that we have any control over in the community, because there are events that happen that they don't need city permission to put on, and we continue to work with those groups to encourage the postponement of large group events. So again, you can call City Hall. I've answered questions. For example, there's a rumor going around that there are 2 patients in the ICU with COVID-19. I called or emailed Ron directly. Not true. We do not have any cases currently confirmed in Yavapai County. So if you have questions or comments, call City Hall, and me or my staff will get back to you and try to help ease any fears that might be going on. But I just want to state, everything I say can change the minute I stop talking with this current virus. So just stay tuned. I'll keep the community and council posted as I learn things.
Very good. Okay, thank you. So next we have 2 proclamations to read, and I think I'll just read them from the dais up here this evening. And thanks to Ron for not dragging us in a half an hour early to read these 2 proclamations, which we would normally do. But
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I also want to add, you notice staff is not here. Rudy's the only one brave enough, and that's part of our desire to keep our groups low. So if I can't answer, we'll email or text to see if we can get an answer for a question.
Okay, very good. Okay, so first proclamation this evening is proclaiming March 29, 2020 as Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day. Whereas the Vietnam War was fought in the Republic of South Vietnam from 1961 to 1975 and involved North Vietnamese regular forces and Viet Cong guerrilla forces in armed conflict with United States Armed Forces and the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. And whereas by the end of 1965, there were 80,000 United States troops in Vietnam, and by 1969, a peak of approximately 543,000 troops was reached. And whereas it is time for all of us, in the spirit of pride and gratitude, to recall the heroic accomplishments of 58,318 servicemen and women whose names are listed on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And whereas we also wish to recognize the 623 men and women from the great state of Arizona who gave the ultimate sacrifice, and thank them for their unselfish devotion to duty. And whereas on March 29, 1973, the United States Armed Forces completed the withdrawal of combat units and combat support units from South Vietnam. And whereas the Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day would be an appropriate way to honor those members of the United States Armed Forces who served in South Vietnam and throughout Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. Now therefore, I, Tim Malinsky, Mayor of the City of Cottonwood, do hereby proclaim March 29, 2020 as Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day in Cottonwood, Arizona, and call upon all citizens to honor and recognize the contributions of veterans who served in the United States Armed Forces in Vietnam during war and during peace, and to encourage the people of Cottonwood to observe Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day with appropriate ceremonies and activities that A, provide the appreciation the Vietnam War veterans deserve but did not receive upon returning home from the war, B, to demonstrate the resolve that never again shall the nation disregard and denigrate a generation of veterans. C, promote awareness of the faithful service and contributions of such veterans during their military service as well as to the communities since returning home. D, promote awareness of the importance of entire communities empowering veterans and the families of veterans to readjust to civilian life after military service. And E, promote opportunities for such veterans to assist younger veterans returning from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in rehabilitation from wounds, both seen and unseen, and to support the reintegration of younger veterans into civilian life. We are a council with many veterans on it. In fact, two up here this evening, I believe, and then Councilmember Hodeggy did serve, he and his brother both in the Vietnam War. So thank you, all of you, for your service. And next is proclaiming the week of March 23rd, 28th, 2020 as Stand With Me, Be Drug-Free Week. So whereas the city of Cottonwood celebrates the fact that a majority of adults and youth in our communities do not abuse drugs and alcohol, and whereas citizens of Cottonwood recognize the adverse effects of drug and alcohol abuse impacting individuals, families, friends, adults, and children alike, and whereas drug and alcohol abuse is a community health issue leading to physical illness, use disorder, accidental death, economic loss, child abuse, destruction of families, driving while impaired, and crimes against persons and property, and whereas the city of Cottonwood encourages all its youth to be free of drug or alcohol abuse, and whereas the city of Cottonwood proclaims support for Stand With Me, Be Drug-Free Week, and encourages youth and adults alike to strive for a healthy, drug-free community. Now, therefore, I, Tim Linsky, Mayor of the City of Cottonwood, do hereby proclaim March 23rd, 28th, 2020 as Stand With Me, Be Drug-Free Week. I will get these proclamations to the folks that deserve them, who obviously aren't in the room this evening. So. All right. So next, we have a presentation from Nancy Steele, Executive Director of Friends of the Verde River, and she'll be presenting the 2020 Verde River Watershed Report Card. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's actually good to be among friends, as all of us are working from home, and so I appreciate your willingness and ability to meet tonight. We're all keeping 6 feet away, though. So what I want to talk to you tonight is a project that you've actually funded and supported, and I'm here to thank you very much for the support of the City of Cottonwood and the participation. Mayor and city manager, in particular, participated quite a bit in putting together this watershed report card. So I'm going to make a brief presentation to you. Some of the information is contained in what I've given you, and then there's a little bit of information that we've pulled out from our data that isn't in what I've given you, but just drills down a little bit more into this specific region of the watershed. And so, I think you all are real familiar with the Verde watershed. I think you're probably all very familiar with the diversity of the watershed. Not only the geographic diversity, but the economic diversity, everything from farming and ranching to recreation, and the terminus of the Verde River watershed is down in the Phoenix metro area in Scottsdale. So we have everything from the high mountains of Mount Humphreys Peak, snowy Mount Humphreys, all the way down to the Sonoran Desert as part of our watershed. And the economic value of the Verde is something that is often talked about, not too terribly well quantified, but I think we all know how important it is to this region, to the lifeblood of this region, bringing people here to recreate, but originally bringing people here because it was a great place to live, and you could get everything you needed here. You could get your fiber, you could get your fuel, you could get your food and your water, and the beauty of this place. So in the actual watershed report card, you can read that quote, which is by Jenny O'Callahan, who owns Tres Brisas Ranch in Camp Verde, but I won't read it to you now. I'll leave you to read that next. But she talks about how much a part of her childhood and her adulthood today is the watershed, the Verde River watershed. And you also probably know, but I'll say it anyway, that we have the only 2 wild and scenic rivers in all of Arizona are part of the Verde River watershed. The Lower Verde and Fossil Creek were both designated under the Federal Wild and Scenic Rivers Act for their scenic, recreational, and wild values. So about a year and a half ago, we came together and said, what do we value? What would we miss if we didn't have those things that we value when we're thinking about the Verde River and its watershed? And how do we want to measure? And you're all familiar with the concept of, if you want to manage it, you need to measure it. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So a watershed report card, the same kind of a report card you get as a child, it's just simply a tool to put a lot of data together and then communicate effectively and simply communicate that information out. So the first step is, what do you value? And we, working with some of you, representatives from the city of Cottonwood and many others, came up with these 3 areas: habitat, water, and communities. This is the backbone of what we value. And within habitat, we all think about the riparian forest, the trees and plants right next to the river as being so important, but so is what we call the upland habitat, the areas of nature that are away from the river. And then the habitat right in the river, that's important too, to fish and otters and beavers and great blue herons and bald eagles and many other animals that live in and depend on that river itself flowing. And in water, we wanted to think about, what's the water quality? How about quantity? What's the flow? And then management. How are we managing? How are we doing in managing our water? Communities, we settled on vitality, community vitality, which is kind of a catch-all phrase that allowed us to think about affordable housing and unemployment and education and healthcare. Engagement, how engaged is our citizenry? Not only here in this area, but we also included digital engagement, which is a first attempt to actually try and figure out how people are engaging across the digital platforms with our region. And then recreation, which is an area that we've all worked on so much over the years to ensure that this is a good place to recreate, that we have access to recreation, that we're planning for recreation, and that we're happy with what we have. So you put all of that together, you crunch a lot of data, you get a lot of people involved because different people have different kinds of data. You calculate your grades, and then you tell everybody about it. Before I tell you all about it, though, in order to do this is the entire watershed. In order to calculate grades, we divided the watershed into 7 regions based on where these rivers are, right? So this region, what we call Upper Verde Valley, ends where the Oak Creek comes into the Verde River. So each one of these is dependent on the tributaries. And like most of the wild and scenic is in this region. And this is the section going down towards Phoenix. So 7 different sections. We scored the region as a whole, and we scored each of the regions, of the subregions, separately. Now, you'll notice there's going to be, or you probably know, there's going to be some differences. Like in the Sycamore Canyon region, there's all of like maybe 10 people who live in that whole region, Down here, there's not very many people, but the people who do live in the region all live in Payson. So what do they know about the river? They're pretty far away from it. So the scores had to be, in some cases, either weighted for the area, the really big region up here, or the population. Not very many people live here. So we paid attention to things like that when we did the scores also. So, again, no surprise, you have this. We released it on February 18th. The region as a whole received a score of a C+. Not too terribly bad. I've seen worse and report cards done on rivers and watersheds in other parts of the world and in other parts of the U.S. And you'll also notice, I think we did so well with a C+ because our communities was so strong. If we didn't have communities of that strength, I suspect our score would have been a bit lower. But communities are a real strong part of this region. And so how did these individual subregions do? How did this subregion do? So again, Upper Verde Valley. It's pretty much between Sycamore Canyon, as I said, and the confluence with Oak Creek. It has Clarkdale, Cottonwood, and Jerome. 30,000 people. It's actually the most dense of all of the subregions in this watershed, densely populated, and it's the smallest geographically. Also got a C+, but a slightly lower score than the region as a whole. The region as a whole scored a 57%. Upper Verde Valley scored about 55%. And the lowest scores were in water, upland, and aquatic habitat at this level. And then you had everyone had a low digital engagement score. Affordable housing was not real great throughout the region also. So I want to just point out a couple of the areas. The Upper Verde Valley had the lowest score in base flow. So what's base flow? We measure the amount of water in the river using the USGS stream gauges in June. So not influenced by winter storms, monsoon hasn't started yet, so that's what we call the base flow. And this is most influenced by groundwater, seeps and springs coming in to the river. But also, again, the water that's coming in through Sycamore is going to have an impact. And there's been quite a considerable decline over the years in that base flow, and and the Upper Verde Valley had the lowest score of any of the subregions for base flow, with the proviso that we didn't score the Chino area the highest, or the northernmost section was not scored. But for the sections that were scored, this one had the lowest. Where'd you do the best? Did the best in recreation. Had the highest score in recreation access of all of the subregions in the watershed, and very good scores in visitor satisfaction and planning. And planning, that's a real important one, I think, because so many of the cities that we surveyed had very, very old and out-of-date recreation plans. And this region had a real good score in that. So to wrap up, there's some solutions that are many, and they range from adopting a river-friendly lifestyle, which we'll be talking with you much more over the next year as we flesh out what that is, but also restoring forests along the river, which we do a lot of. Not just along the river, not just the removal of invasive non-native species and replacement with natives like cottonwood and willows, but also the upland habitats. There's a lot of erosion that happens in the upland habitat areas, and that's an area we're turning our attention to, the Forest Service is turning its attention to over the next several years. But each one of these solution areas has a little bit about what we can do, and each of these are areas we're going to be focusing on into the future, especially this one about integrating our land and water planning. Now, what do we do next? So you don't just get a report card once in your life and then say you're done. You get a report card periodically. So that's what we intend to do with the Verde report card, is periodically update it. We'll issue one in 2021 in conjunction with the State of the Verde Watershed Conference. And as we have been able to count on the City of Cottonwood as a strong supporter of this process in the past, hoping we can count on you as a strong supporter of these activities in the future. We'll be spending 2020 this year looking at those indicators. Some of them we weren't able to score. We're going to focus on those, especially the water management one, and maybe look at aquatic and riparian health, because those are another couple where some of our reviewers weren't tremendously satisfied. For some reason, I had a lot of things in my mind, and I forgot to put the thank you slide in here that has all the logos of everybody, so I'll just tell you. This was a project of the Nature Conservancy and Friends of the Verde River with major funding by the U.S. Forest Service. This was 2 years ago was the 50th anniversary of the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, and so they wanted to contribute to this process, this project. And the Nina Mason Pulliam Charitable Trust was another funder, along with the cities of Cottonwood, Sedona, Camp Verde, and Clarkdale all funded this effort. So thank you all for that. And that's my presentation. You have this handout inside your brochure that is specific to the Upper Verde Valley. And I'm happy to answer any questions now or at any time in the future. You've got my email, my phone number is on our website. I also wanted to introduce, I think many of you know Keegan Moorcroft, but she is our new Stewardship and Development Manager, and she's also available for any questions that you have.
Great. Do we have any questions for Ms. Steele? Yep. I just want to, if you don't mind going into a little bit more clarification on
Sure.
the water quality certainty.
Oh, that was a good one, yes. Okay, water quality. So, this is a very clever thing. I can actually go back and forward. So you're talking about this?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a lot of sampling that goes on for water quality in the Verde watershed. Most of it is actually happening in the Upper Verde, this area. And so the data that we have shows that water quality is good. Gets a very good, in fact. Well, no, good. Is it good or very good? I think it's very good. But the next one that gets a red, water quality certainty, says we're not really certain that we're measuring in the right places, that we're measuring often enough. And so we're not really very certain that that very good score is the right score.
Okay.
So we had actually recently, or turned down for a grant, sorry. We'd actually applied recently for a grant to develop a water quality, a collaborative water quality management and monitoring plan for the entire watershed. We'll try again, you know, even though we were turned down, we'll try again. And we're working with Arizona DEQ because they're passionately wanting this information. And so I think they're going to I know that they're going to work with us on helping to find the funding so that we can put together that kind of a monitoring plan, so we can make sure we're actually certain of our information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. It seems like that's something that'd be easy to correct.
Yeah.
As well. And then you said you did not measure water or base flow in Little Chino?
This area, because there isn't any,
Okay.
really. We need a USGS gauge, and they have, the only gauges they have up there are what's called low flow gauges, which just, they don't tell you really what the water level is. They only measure it, really, it's really low, and anyway, they're not adequate for the information we needed. I'll just point out the one that we haven't done, this groundwater best management practices. This is in the area of management that we're going to be digging deep into that this year.
Okay. And then the 32% decline in the subflow, or excuse me, base flow, was that just indicated in the Upper Verde, or did you see that anywhere else in the Lower Verde?
The lower graph here is the Lower Verde, and that was 46% decline in the Lower Verde.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. All right.
So we have graphs for each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 regions, but we only put these two up there because one's from the Upper Verde, which is more influenced by groundwater and flows from the east side of the watershed, and then lower down, it's a little more influenced by that, but also diversions, ditch diversions.
Okay.
And uses.
Got it. All right. Any other questions? Thank you. It was a monumental task, and you did very well.
Thank you.
Well done.
We very much appreciate your participation and help, and I know Ron went to many meetings, you went to many meetings, that was much appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is call to the public. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda for discussion. Okay, we'll move on. I do believe that this meeting is on Facebook Live, is that correct? And if anybody has any questions, they can, we have staff that's...
That is correct. I just sent Rudy a text. I believe I saw John come out of here. They were setting up the monitoring of Facebook Live, so I hope Kirsten, I think, was going to be monitoring it so people could ask questions where they might actually be here instead, because we have encouraged people to watch.
Sure. Okay. All right, then we'll close the floor, move on to approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 3rd, 2020.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 3rd, 2020.
Second?
Okay, Councilmember Henry made the motion, Naren seconded it, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Unfinished business, we have one item tonight, it's ordinance number 675, repealing and replacing the city's drought and water shortage preparedness plan. This is the second and final reading.
Mr. Mayor, we did not receive any feedback from the community, so I'm here to answer questions. And Tom's not here to correct me tonight, so we're good.
Perfect. Any questions? No?
No.
Okay.
Entertain a motion?
Yes.
I move to approve ordinance number 675.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Aye.
Councilmember Halls.
Yes?
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes?
Vice Mayor Matthews.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
Okay, please read ordinance number 675 by title only.
Ordinance number 675, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, repealing and replacing the city's drought and water shortage preparedness plan and providing for the publication of the revised and updated plan in the Cottonwood Municipal Code. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next is the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine, non-controversial by the council, will be approved by one motion. We have 4 items tonight on the consent agenda. First is authorization for FANN Contracting, Inc. to perform the work included in bid alternate 1 for the Main Street Striping Improvement Road Diet Project, Main Street from Cactus to Willard. Item 2, award of contract for generator maintenance and repair services to W.W. Williams through cooperative use of the City of Mesa's contract number 2019003. Item 3, application for extension of premises patio liquor license permit submitted by Tamara Morgan for that brewery located at 300 East Cherry Street, Building B, for an event scheduled for April 25th, 2020. Item 4 is liquor license application for Series 12 restaurant liquor license submitted by Kara Knowlton, applicant for Bing's Burger Station located at 794 North Main Street. Is there an item that council member would like pulled?
No.
No? Okay, I'll go ahead and approve the consent agenda. Motion to approve, I mean.
Second?
Okay. Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Holst seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It is approved. New business. Following items are for council discussion, consideration, possible legal action. Item 1 is public hearing on the city's section 5311 FTA grant application to fund operations maintenance capital for the Cottonwood Area Transit CAT Verde Links public transportation system for federal fiscal years 2021-2022.
I know it's a long title. Mayor and Council, Rudy Rodriguez, Deputy City Manager for the City of Cottonwood. One of the things we're requesting that the council open up the floor to any public comment or submittal of the 5311 grant before we go into the actual request for acceptance to submit for the grant.
All right. Are there any members of the public this evening that would like to speak during this public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I will confirm Kirsten is monitoring because she spookedly replied that she was watching.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if there were any comments or questions coming to her, we'd know now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, well then, hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the floor to the public and move on to item 2, which is authorization to submit an application for Section 5311 Rural Transportation Grant Funding for the Cottonwood Area Transit Verde Links Public Transportation System for federal fiscal years 2021 to 2022.
Mayor and Council, this is a request to submit for the grant for 2 fiscal years. Two fiscal years, federal fiscal years, beginning October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. Excuse me, that was October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2022. Just some quick background. Some of you that may have been around, some of you have not been around. We took over the system late in 1988. It was originally called the Purple Bus, old used bus that would transport people from Cottonwood to Jerome. Since then, obviously, it has grown considerably and now provides service to Verde Valley, all over the Verde Valley. including Camp Verde through the Apache transit system, and even we have agreements with Greyhound to get people out from our system onto the Greyhound system if need be to leave the area or travel outside of the area. In 2012, we began the Link service. Some of you may know that the Link service is a commuter service between here and Sedona. It provides for transportation for their workforce, for their hospitality business, and also for tourists that are willing to hop on, come over here, and we will happily transport them back. Earlier this last fiscal year, we extended the service from around 6 and 7 p.m. all the way into midnight to make sure that those hospitality workers that work late in Sedona are able to get back. Along with that, we implemented the Cottonwood Connect so that when they arrived at the library, which is our transfer station, we were able to get them safely home during those late hours. We were very fortunate that Sedona has been footing the bill for that entire late night service, which of course is appreciated by a lot of Cottonwood residents that work in that area. This year, it's a pretty sizable grant. I've got some notes here. The overall grant for the 2 years is $5.9 million. Which is broken up into the 2 different year categories, and you have those in your packet. The first year, from October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, is for $3.2 million total grant, of which $2.1 million is a federal portion, and $1.1 is the local portion, including $185,000 that we expect to get in fair collections. Of that money, just so you know, $300,000 is allocated for preventive maintenance. We've been hitting well over $300,000 a year. This year, we're projected to hit almost $400,000. Hence is why we are pushing for replacement of 4 buses this coming year, and 2 purpose-built ADA vans, ADA vans to be replaced this coming fiscal year. Now, so we understand that we're requesting this money, and even if we get it, does not mean that we have to allocate it and use it up in this particular upcoming fiscal year. We will do whatever we need to, especially considering what we're going through currently with the COVID-19. That if we need to prolong our acquisition of buses, we will go ahead and do that. With the caveat that obviously if we prolong it, we will continue to have those high preventive maintenance costs. For next year, the following fiscal year, second portion of this budget, we're looking at $2.7 million, of which 1.6 is federal, and just $1 million is local portion. Again, we also have $300,000 allocated for preventive maintenance for that particular year. Along with the buses, we have the 4 CAT buses we have programmed for next year, and again, not necessarily because we have them in there will it happen, but we do have to make the request now, because if we don't make it now, we won't get it later, and this is for a 2-year term. Along with those, we're looking at some increased security over at our offices, over at the CAT facility, and we're looking to hopefully construct some additional bus pullouts during the next 2 years in different key locations. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just make sure that you guys got, this is approval, this is a request for you to approve our application to, this is not to allocate resources at this time. So we'll come back later after the process runs a little bit to actually ask for, during the budget process, resources. Is that correct, Rudy?
Right. Well, the next step will be getting acceptance from ADOT and FTA for the monies, and we still have to allocate those through our budget process.
Mm-hmm. How secure is the funding from the FTA?
Traditionally, we've been real fortunate that we have gotten secured funding from year to year, including our capital monies. In past years, we've gotten as much as 93.7, meaning 93% federal and 7% our local match. This year, we're looking at a 80-20 split in our capital expenses.
Okay. Do we have any questions from council for Mr. Rodriguez?
This is the grant that basically funds our transit system, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it'll come back to council again when we go to allocate the funds, so, okay. All right,
So ready for a motion?
please.
I move to authorize staff to apply for Section 5311 FTA Rural Transportation Funding to the Arizona Department of Transportation for the administration, operations, and capital expenses of the Cottonwood Area Transit Verde Link System for the 2021 and 2022 federal fiscal years.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Nairn made the motion and Wilden seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Hulse.
Yes.
Councilmember Nairn.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Matthews.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is proposed marketing agreement with Utility Services Partners Private Label, Inc., doing business as Service Line Warranties of America to offer sewer and water line lateral service plans to city utility customers.
Yes, Mayor, Council, we had already talked about this for some of the members that were at the work session. National League of Cities has a program, a service line warranty program to protect lateral lines. As you know, the city of Cottonwood is responsible for all of our water and sewer lines up to the property. We are not responsible for the lines going into the homes or in the homes. This particular program, sponsored by the League of Arizona Cities, allows people to buy coverage for those lateral lines. In your packet, you have the cost of the coverage. It's $575 per month for the water service line plan. The sewer septic line is $775, and the interior plumbing and drainage plan is $999 per month. Some of the advantages, of course, it's no cost to the city, and it's all a voluntary program. A small amount of revenue comes back to the city of Cottonwood. They take care of a public awareness program. They vet all the contractors prior to, and they go ahead and handle all the repairs. It's a 24/7 program where you just pick up the phone, you have an issue, they take it from there. They solicit, they find you your contractor, they call you and tell you to set up appointments, and they get the work done, and they bill the company direct. Just no hands, pretty much hands off. As part of this particular program, I was asked to look for at the local vendors and see if they had a similar program, and some do not have that program. One of the insurance companies went ahead and said they have no such coverage for the lateral lines available to them. Another company said that they have coverage with a $500 deductible. This one does not have a deductible. It has $10,000 worth of coverage. This one, I think, is limited on the amount of coverage. I would have to... Oh, I didn't write it on here. But it's not $10,000. But it's certainly sufficient to cover the work that was done, that is to be done. Mind you, I just recently had a gas line replaced, and it was like $3,600 just to get a gas line replaced. So it can be pretty pricey. Cost for such an insurance, one company said that they had a $500 deductible. They don't hire the professional. You have to basically call it in, take pictures, and you do all the research and try to find the contractor to do the work. At $30 annually, which is obviously cheaper than what we're proposing. However, you would have to switch your insurance over to their policy in order to have coverage. We do have another local insurance firm that can actually give you the coverage without having to switch out your insurance carrier. $15 a year. It's readily available. Lateral lines, no problem. 24/7. You can call them in. But again, you have to call in and you have to take pictures and contact the adjuster has to come in, look at the work that needs to be done. You solicit your own contractor and you go from there. the warranty, the NCL warranty, they basically, as I mentioned earlier, they locate contractors. They will have a listing of contractors on board. They vet all of them prior to, and they're all local contractors. They don't bring up contractors from Phoenix to do this type of work. They make sure that they're all local contractors. And like I said, they vet them, drug test them, and everything for you before, as part of the service. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Last time this,
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilmember Wilson, yes.
I believe when we discussed this previously, you or somebody was going to check into with other communities to find out how they are dealing with it, if they have any negatives or positives. We contacted 3?
Yes, I contacted 3. We tried to contact a few others, but we didn't get responses from them, whether it was because of what's happening now or they just didn't have any responses for us. You have them in there. Avondale responded, Shola responded, Green Valley Council responded, and the responses are all there. For the most part, they have very favorable responses. Of course, the biggest issue is initially when they do their mail-outs, there's questions because they think the city is actually providing service, and in reality, we're not providing. We're just sponsoring the service, but we're not providing the service itself.
So no real negatives?
No, we didn't have any real negatives. That's the big one, is just staff intensive when you send out the initial mail-outs.
I believe that was another concern we raised at the last meeting was, the last time we discussed this, was not giving the impression that we're endorsing this company per se. I believe that was your concern, wasn't it, Councilmember?
That was one of my concerns. And that, I mean, that was echoed, especially, I mean, we had a poor response. I understand, the time constraints of that, but that was echoed by Sholo. Again, some residents don't like the city endorsing a private entity and using the city logo, and that was a similar to one of the concerns that I'd had at the last meeting as well.
Were your other questions answered that you had?
They were, but also, and I appreciate Rudy bringing this matter before council because it just wasn't on my radar. I mean, I think, again, many of us had heard from a local homeowner who had concerns about the cost of replacing the lines. And so that the issue was on my radar, and then I didn't realize that there was insurance coverage readily available. But then once Rudy brought this to council and we heard the presentation, I did hear that there are other options that are readily available that may be less expensive. There are pros and cons to each. Sure. And so I've changed my opinions from what I had expressed at the last meeting because I don't want to be putting the city seal on marketing information where I would hope folks would go out and contact a local insurance broker, find a policy that fits their needs. For example, I would rather pay less every month and have a higher deductible personally, just because that's my preference. Others would probably like to have no deductible and pay more every month. I have no problem taking photos myself and uploading them. Others might want a company that does it. So I would personally rather our citizens, if they're interested in the service, do the cost-benefit analysis themselves, and I don't want to be putting the city stamp of approval or endorsing any one particular company and potentially taking customers from our local folks, even if we do get a portion of the percentage of the amounts.
Okay. How does the rest of council feel?
So I wasn't here for that meeting. I was able to watch some of it, but not all of it. And I looked at the minutes from the meeting, which didn't have any information in there. I feel the same way. Regardless of what you want to call it, if we put our logo and our name on it, we're fully endorsing it. And I'm not really comfortable with that. I don't know if anybody else did, but I looked up, they're doing business as Service Line Warranties of America. I looked them up on the Better Business Bureau, and they have an extensive number of reviews on there. And they're either really good or they're really bad. And there were a lot of each. And it was just, and I do a lot of research on reviews on different things all the time. And I don't always take a negative or a couple of negative reviews and paint a broad brush with those. But there were a lot of unhappy people. With what I would expect to see too, where they called up, they had a claim, and they had issues. And like I said, there was also, some people said I had no issues. It was really great. I don't know why they need our stamp to go, I mean, they're a private business. Why can't they solicit our citizens without having us come on and put our stamp of approval on it?
And again, it's like several other programs that they have with the League of Arizona Cities. They go to Arizona cities, and before they go out there, they'd like to be able to provide something back to the cities. Like I said, there's a token that comes back to the community, to the city of the cities that actually provide the endorsement. Again, all we're asking for is yet one more option, but if council is not comfortable with it, I'm fine with it too.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I can add, we didn't do this as a revenue generator. This is just an option out there. It does require your, seal of approval. You don't want to give it, we'll move on. There are other options for residents, so there's no hard sells here. It's really up to you guys if you want to do it or not. Yuma tried it, it failed. She talked about that the last time. So,
Well, nothing prevents them from,
well, they would
Still
get our
coming out.
list, I think, is one of the big things. By partnering with us,
Okay.
they would have a mailing list automatically with our customers. So I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons they want it. And just as you both, as all have recognized, our seal does mean something.
it does, and
And
I'm not
so-
sure they would appreciate us giving out their,
Well, they can request that city residents for $100 from the Pike County. So, again, if, I would prefer, just as our local insurance folks can, they can also do direct mailers and things just as, anyone else. But I think I've been pretty clear. I think you made some good comments. I didn't even think to look at their Better Business
there was a
reviews, so I'm
lot.
glad you did. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely a positive to have this coverage, I think. But again, to lean toward the city, I'm not feeling real good about that.
Neither am I. I think I'm on board with what everybody else is saying. It's nice to know that there's so many options, though, so that if homeowners do want this insurance, they can call around and find out this information and get what they need. And I don't know, maybe there's something we can do to educate the public on the fact that those things are not covered by the city, for those who don't already know that. But putting our seal on it, I think, is a really big deal, and I'm not very comfortable with that either.
I think that's an excellent idea that Councilmember Nairn just touched on. I don't know if there is a way to have that added to our utility website, or even a blurb, informational on their bill at some point down the future, in the future, so that folks do know and know that it's out there. And
Yeah, so that maybe they know before they have a problem. Right.
We have a section on our billing where we can go ahead and put a notation on it, or we can go ahead and build something into our Facebook or our Twitter feeds.
Awesome.
I appreciate, again, Rudy, I want to
Yes.
say, again, there was a complaint, and I think you were very responsive to, that concern, and I appreciate you doing that. I just would rather move in a different direction than this particular company.
And that's fine, Mayor, Council.
Okay. All right. I'm not feeling a lot of love for this service line warranty program, so would you like to have a motion to?
I can fail for want of a motion.
Great, okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for bringing it forward. All right, so that's that, and we move on to claims and adjustments. I move to pay the claims and adjustments.
Second?
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Holt seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Yes.